Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Elevation Cast. I'm joined today by Vicki from Creative in Numbers. We're going to talk all about the world of accounting, the background around Creative in Numbers, and a bit of Vicki's journey. So, Vicki, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. If you want to get started by introducing yourself, tell us a little bit about your background, and then tell us how you got started with Creative in Numbers.
Sure. So, my name's Vicki. Been running an accountancy practice for 23 years now. Sector I'm in is solely or pretty much exclusively I work with creatives, hence the name Creative in Numbers. That was rebranded about 5 years ago. As I say, my clients are predominantly from the creative industries. In terms of how I got into it, I actually fell into it, really. It was a moment, a friend of mine who was an accountant needed some help with a project he was doing, some auditing work. So I took some time from my PAYE job, took some time off and decided to go and help him with the audit. And it kind of went from there, really. Unfortunately, he had some health issues quite quickly after that, and I had to make a decision. He called me and said, would you be prepared to look after the practice he was a sole trader as well, but look after the practice for a short while I kept convalesce, and I was kind of, do I, don't I? And I just made the decision to leave my other job and go and support him while he was convalescing, and I never left. And that was it, really.
And how long ago was that?
23 years ago.
23 years ago.
I wasn't qualified at the time. I was working as a client finance manager in a medical agency. So I was working in finance at the time, but as I say, not actually qualified as an accountant. So that started my journey of then training as well and to become an accountant.
So in the beginning, in terms of the clientele that you kind of went after as an accountant, would it have been a bit more of a broader spectrum? So where did the creatives and the artists and those individuals fall into place?
Well, the accountant that I was working with, he had a broader spectrum of clients. However, when I first started with him, he got me very much involved with the sole traders and the freelancers, and they just happened to be creatives. So I worked within that sort of area, and it just sort of grew from there. As I started working there, maybe I'd got a brother or a partner coming on board, and they were creatives, and then the word just started to spread, really. So I've not actually worked, apart from a few people that are my family who are not in the creative sector, and I do their accounts for them. I've never really worked with anything other than creatives. So I've definitely...
It's a bit of a niche that you started with, and you've just kind of... on this journey with them. Yeah, I can imagine it's one of those things in business, isn't it? Word of mouth means a lot, and naturally you find that they refer you to people within the same industry. So yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. When I look back, it was all about referrals and word of mouth, as the sort of I grew with my clientele. So that was because in the beginning, there wasn't the funds to do all marketing and spending a lot on advertising. So it was very much word of mouth. But I was obviously doing something right because it did grow. I've got families of 5 different people. I've got their friends, I've got cousins, I've got, but all within the creative. Yeah.
Amazing. That's fantastic. So tell me about the early days. I'm assuming, was it your 7-woman band? Trying to wear every hat in the business possible, trying to generate new business, look after current clients, do your own books, I'm assuming did you have to kind of handle everything in the early days?
Absolutely. I mean, it was really full on. I mean, I was working with the other accountant for a period of time, but he was quite a bit older than me. So quite soon into that relationship, he wanted to start winding down and do more sort of, maybe advisory work, things like that. So I was taking more and more of the sole traders on. But yes, for me to then be able to sort of carry on and have my own practice, because he was winding down and heading towards retirement, I very much had to then look at getting qualified and then wearing every hat. Yeah, how am I going to build my practice? I've got quite a nice little client base, but how am I going to start building that? And it is about, you do wear every single hat. It's hard work.
Yeah. Absolutely. And what sort of, if you can cast your mind back, I know it's 23 years ago now, so it's probably not going to be at the forefront, but the kind of challenges that you face in the early days, can you remember back to what those might have been?
Yeah, I think the sort of ones that jump out at me really is I had a young family as well at the time. I actually was a single parent too, so the sort of financial aspect of that, am I going to be able to build this for it and it to be able to make enough money to pay my mortgage, things like that. So that was a big concern, a big challenge. The other, time management. Because you're building a business, you work a lot of hours, and that's trying to juggle that with a young family. Then also studying again, which I did for 3 years, so I was studying evenings, weekends on so I wouldn't say burnout, but I was, every minute of my day, of every day was taken up for a long period of time, but it was worth it. It was worth it. And I look back, I don't actually know how I managed to do it, to be honest. If I was faced with that now, I don't think I'd be able to do it, but I did. And I got through it and I got qualified and, was able to come out the other side.
Yeah. That's the side of it, the business that people often don't see, is that I think people who maybe don't have their own businesses often look at business owners, especially once they've got to the point where they have built their business up enough to buy some of their time back. And by that I mean I often find that in the very early days, 60, 70-hour weeks for a business owner are just the norm, and breathe your business for the first 5, 6, 7 years, and it's only after that when hopefully you can start to buy some of that time back, and you might start to work a 30, 40-hour week. And at that point I feel a lot of people assume that you've got this great life, and they go, oh God, I'd love to have my own business, I'd love to have that freedom, not knowing the sacrifice for the last 5 or 6 years. And I do think that's often a part of the story that only other business owners, self-employed, freelancers can kind of relate to. It's hard unless you've been there to understand the early struggle, the struggles of the early days, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think people look at it with rose-tinted glasses, but I'm very aware that once you get going, it doesn't, when you look now at the way things are with the world, I don't actually think it's that much of an appealing prospect anymore, because there's so much involved with running a business. There's the tax situation, or doing your own finances, finding clients, actually the hours involved. I don't think there's an incentives from the government and things like that to actually help the people starting out. I find this a lot with the freelancers I work with. They're having the same struggles as me with they're running their business, not enough hours in the day. But it's certainly people looking in have a different idea. They think, lucky you've got no boss. You can do what you like when you like. It's absolutely not like that to start with. It takes a lot of time to get to that point, unless you hit on something really niche and you can make a lot of money very quickly. But, those opportunities are very, very few and far between, and certainly not in accountancy. So unless you hit on some really amazing product that you can sell for a lot of money, or a tech company that you can sell and make lots of money very quickly, it's a hard road to take, I think. Yeah.
Absolutely. So tell me, current day, where are things at with Creative in Numbers? Have you got a team behind you now, and how long have you had a team for? And give me maybe some updates on to where you're currently at.
So I've got a really great team with me, or behind me, working alongside me. I don't have any, but I have a flat structure within my team or within the business. So we're all on an even keel. There's no bosses, I just make sure that everybody knows what they're doing and who's doing what. We have a regular meeting, but every week, just to make sure where the challenges are, where the bottlenecks are. But for me personally, I believe in a flat structure for my business, because all the people that I've got are really, really nice. They're intelligent. They run their own days. They don't need to be managed. But that's Brilliant. Very important. Those are the types of people I take on that got the, and if I'm plugging gaps for experience, make sure, whoever I take on has got the right experience, but definitely give them ownership of the job and freedom to do what they need to do. Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah, I think that's super important. I think that's the way that the world's heading towards, is a much flatter, not so much of a hierarchy, and certainly not as strict, and like you say, the whole micromanaging thing. I think, don't get me wrong, in certain industries and with certain maybe junior members of staff that are still needing a bit of hand holding, I can understand that. But I think people need to be given the opportunity to prove themselves, and also the trust that they are coming into work to do a good job. Now, of course, unfortunately, it's not always the case, and there are the odd staff. You sometimes make the odd hire that talk a great game, but then when they're in, you can kind of, within a few weeks, you can see maybe the cracks. You can see who's actually performing and who's not. Who is actually putting in the work. But I think those that do put in the work need the freedom to do so. Like, I think that's a brilliant way of managing a team.
Yeah. I think also what I've found is when they've come from maybe a bigger corporate company, they're used to being managed or micromanaged. So it takes a period of adjustment for them to realize that they're not going to have to do that here. And I think for them, it's then having the confidence to step out of that comfort zone and then once they realize, they just flourish. The team have really flourished and they really grow. I'm also very much, massive promoter of, if there's a better opportunity obviously I want to keep all my team as long as I can, but if there's a better opportunity, I'm really a massive advocate of the team going on,
Progression.
Furthering their careers, getting more experience in whatever sort of capacity that is. So I would never hold any of my team back. And I want them to grow as much as they can. My ethos is when they get to my age, I want them to be able to look back and have really enjoyed this period of time that they've had with me or within the Creative and Numbers team. And they will talk to other, I had this great experience 20 years ago and I learned a lot. That for me is really important that I can give them that experience within my team. Yeah, within the business.
Definitely. No, I love that. And it's a very similar ethos and certainly morals that I share as well. And I think it's very simple. And it's one of the earliest lessons we're ever taught on this planet is treat others the way you want to be treated yourself. It's as simple as that. If you treat people well and you're kind and respectful, they're always going to reflect that back to you as well. You'll always get their respect.
Yeah.
I think it's important. And that's for staff, clients, family, friends, everyone really, to be honest.
I mean, we've all worked in a place, haven't we, where we haven't had that. And I came from the corporate world and it was not the last job I was in was not a pleasant experience for me. Hence why I said I'm not going to go back to that world again. And yeah, it was a very difficult time with some very difficult people and it didn't need to be, it's just maybe a bit of a power game. I don't know. But anyway, I just always vowed I'd never, if I got to a point where I was managing a team, I would never be like that. And I haven't. Hopefully, ask the team.
That's good. Obviously, the landscape within accountancy is obviously ever changing, rapidly more so in the last 6-7 years with the introduction of cloud-based technology and Xero and all of the new tech that's coming in terms of bookkeeping and even things like receipt bank and stuff. It's definitely must have changed a lot for accountants and certainly in a good way because of efficiencies. But how have you found adjusting to the new technologies within accountancy over the years? What was it like in the beginning to what is it like now?
Golly, look back, every tax return was written by hand. Those were the day. All the tax computations I did were written on the square pads, laid out. I think just probably when I was starting, it was just on the change. But yeah, I certainly did a lot of paper. There was a lot of files around in the office, piled high. I did a lot of filling in of tax returns. That's what I remember the most about. I'm doing tax computations, but I very much, it is really changing. But I think the biggest challenge is not so much getting the team on board because they're kind of the young people coming through. They're used to it. They're used to sort of using apps. They're used to using clouds. It's the software. So, once you've used for us as accountants or bookkeepers, once you've kind of used one piece of software like Xero or QuickBooks, you can pretty much turn your hand to any. But the bigger challenge is actually the requirement for our clients to do it. So, we're putting them onto software and they're then having to sort of learn almost like another trade, I suppose, or another bookkeeping to some degree. Some pick it up straight away. Others, it's just like a foreign language. They just can't get their heads round. And I get it, it's like giving me a piece of designer software and saying, off you go then. I wouldn't have a clue. So this is what we're saying. I always say, almost expected to become a bookkeeper overnight and understand how the software works. So that's the bigger challenge with how it's changing within accountancy. But in terms of for us, it's been brilliant. It streamlines everything, makes our lives so much easier, means we can, look after our clients, service them more quickly, get work done quicker for them, take on more clients, you have more capacity to do the clients. So for us, it's the only way. If you're not on board with the software and the changing tech, then you're going to be left behind in accountancy, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. And how have you found keeping up with again, it's another ever changing landscape, but within the legislation of accountancy, for example, obviously the biggest one that always comes to mind is the whole making tax digital, which is soon from next year, as you know, to be impact freelancers, self-employed, sole traders, etc. What's your opinions and how have you kind of been navigating that?
Honestly, I'm not really navigating it very well at the moment. So I say that I know it's coming. I know what's going to happen. I think for me, it's just because I've got a pretty large client base. It's trying to work out how we're going to manage that within the team, and then, rolling it out to clients. We have clients that do their own bookkeeping. So there's a massive challenge around there, and it's not just me, it's across the industry. There's a lot of talks going on at the moment, how are we going to price this? Working with creatives, they don't have an endless pot of money because they have fluctuating income streams. They might have a contract for 6 months and nothing. So, that's the extra challenge I think that we've got as a business, or I've got, is that, we can't just say, well, we're going to file 4 times a year, so we're going to make your fee 4 times as much. It doesn't work like that. So that's a big challenge. And how we're actually going to get all the filings done at these particular points, because they're all set quarters. So, I'm still trying to get my head around those elements of it. How are we going to manage the workflow, and how am I going to price this that isn't going to be ridiculously expensive for our clients? Yeah,
I can imagine. It's see for yourself, because I'm assuming with having a lot of freelancers on, a lot of these have just been doing sort of end of year tax returns, as opposed to a lot of them. So it must be quite a big shift for you. Other account, just in comparison to other accountants who might just have a lot of limited companies, for example, they might already have. So for them, they might have 10% of their portfolio might be self-employed and freelancers. But I can imagine for yourself, it's very different, maybe the other way around.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly it. So, some of my colleagues who work in the industry, they're predominantly limited. So actually, it's not going to impact them. They've just got a handful of people, I wouldn't say a handful, but, just a small percentage that they need to roll this out to. But for me, and my team, it's predominantly freelancers. So you're exactly right. I think the other challenge, I think, it's been already postponed for 2 years. I know it's coming. We know it's going to happen. As I say, for us as accountants, it's just trying to work out how to manage it. Manage the clients. But the changing legislation, I mean, that's always been there. Every tax year we get a change of some sort, whether it's tax has gone up, something's come down. We've just had the NI changes, so there's always something every year. So there's managing that and rolling that out to the clients each year. So it's a constant challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. Really got to have your finger on the pulse, haven't you? And because these things are big changes. As someone that's has hospitality business, it is so important that we keep on top of numbers, because, like I said, I do not need to tell you, it is the numbers at the end of the day that determine survival or not. And I think in the early days, a lot of people don't understand the key metrics, how their balance sheet looks as opposed to their profit and loss, and I think that's where some people can unfortunately get it wrong in those early days. You've got to have someone that knows the numbers.
Yeah, and not a misconception, but it's really, there's times where a lot of clients will mistake the money they've got in the bank account. I think, okay, I've got a decent amount of money in the bank, and then for actually what the numbers are saying on, like you say, the balance sheet or the profit and loss, and they don't realise that you have to run those 3 elements in parallel. Otherwise, it's not a case of just drawing money out the bank, and then, because you will come unstuck at some point. Cash flow, everybody says cash flow is king, and it's absolutely right. You've just got to be managing it. And especially with my clients, because of the fluctuating incomes, like, they've got to be able to on a good 6 months is then put away enough money to carry them. If they don't, then get another contract, or a lot of them are producers in the film industry, things like that. So they could have a 6 months where they haven't got anything,
Yeah.
and then they come unstuck because they've not put aside the money just to be able to live and pay their mortgage. That can be a real problem.
I can imagine. Yeah,
Trying
definitely. A lot. Do you have to do a lot of forecasting and modeling then to kind of show people, how much they could spend, or?
I think we don't do a lot of forecasting for them, but what we do is I have an open communication with them. If they're struggling or they need some time with me, so I can talk through, the best practice for them. That's what I do. Sometimes just presenting numbers or balance sheets with creatives, so it doesn't necessarily make sense because they're just sort of looking at piece of paper. So for me, it's more about I'll jump on a Zoom, we'll bring up their accounts, I'll share the screen and I'll do it that way and help them to understand what they need to be putting away, which figures to look at, and then a rough calculation if they've got maybe corporation tax, those sorts of things. That works much better for me.
Yeah.
The clients that we've got, is having more face-to-face meetings.
Brilliant. So, just diving deeper into how you actually operate the business as a whole. So, obviously, you've mentioned over the years you've now grown a team that sit alongside you. So, as the business owner now, after 23 years, what are your priorities within the business, and what do you kind of delegate down, or what do you use the team members beside you for?
Up until about a year ago, I had the accountant, the sort of support, another accountant, I had the bookkeeping support. I've got a finance lady. But I took a decision last year, part of the strategy and the plan, to take on a business manager. So he works alongside me. And actually that was because I realized if I didn't do that and was able to move a lot of my stuff across to somebody who, they didn't necessarily need to be an accountant, but somebody who had a good business head on them, I was never going to get out of the business in terms of, I was just so immersed in it, which was fine. But for me to get some of my time back and do the other things I want to do, I needed that. So I took on the business manager, and that's been working great. So he works alongside me, and basically now I've shifted all of my work across to him in terms of managing the team. When I say managing the team, he doesn't manage them as in their workflow. He deal with any bottlenecks, any challenges they're facing, and he kind of reports back to me. We meet every other day. We just talk about what, is there any gaps in their learning? Do they need any training? Do they need any, so that sort of thing. Also, in terms of, he manages the work in terms of, whatever our targets are for the month. I've only just introduced targets this year. I never did, but it wasn't something I didn't want the team to be sort of being driven hard, but all the target. But for me to sort of be able to scale the business again, I realized that was something that's quite important. So we've introduced that this year, and it's working really well. So he manages that, making sure we've got the right work in the right months that are going to make sure the team hit the target. He'll be checking in with them along the bookkeepers. Have they got the work finished to feed through to the accountant? Is the accountant going to get the job finished? So that's kind of what he does. So he takes on all of that side of things. That's allowed me to now think about the strategy of the business growing. What's the next few years looking like? I've got more involved in our social media, reluctantly, but I realised that, I need to be doing it. So if you go on my Instagram, I've started doing little videos of myself, taken a lot of courage because that's not me at all. But and then, so that's what I'm focusing more of my time on these days.
Cool. So you're focused on kind of growing the business and the next few years. So do you have a business goal? So what are the goals then for Creative in Numbers? Have you got an exit strategy yet, or you've just kind of thinking 3 to 5 years of growth strategy? Where are you guys at?
Yeah, so probably if you'd asked me 5 years ago, I would have been, I'm looking at an exit strategy. What am I going to do? But I think I've managed to get things back under control in terms of the right people in the right positions here, and with the business manager coming on. So at the moment, no, there's no exit strategy. It's just about growth, because I really believe in what we do here. I really believe that we've got something that we can offer to creatives. We solely work with them. We've got, all my team are really experienced with working with creatives. So, and I believe that we are the go-to accountancy practice that can help the clients, And when I say creatives, we've got the big companies in London that look after the big production houses. Now we're not going for those. We're the smaller production companies, maybe productions up to say 2 million or something, and then a lot of the freelancers that work within those productions. So that's where our client base is, and that's where I feel we've really got something here that we can really help them. And that for me is about helping the client. Yeah.
Brilliant. And so how is it you target them in a minute? Have you got, what is the kind of marketing approach? I know obviously you've started with a bit more social media, obviously referrals, but is there any other marketing or outreach that you guys do to try and, to literally reach out to new potential prospects?
Yeah, about a year ago, I've started looking at SEO, in Google and Google Analytics. I've got some help on board with that because I didn't know the first thing about it. So it was a decision for the business that I made. Yeah, we're going to reinvest some money now into marketing. It's the first time. We're sort of 12 months in and we're really seeing some good results with it. So we'll continue doing that. I'll continue doing videos, sort of try and understand more the sort of the back end of the social media. I've got my nephew helping me with that, just so that I understand, what the numbers are saying there, so that I can become more focused, who's looking, and so we can really target our, prime audience or whatever.
Brilliant.
But it's all a minefield for me, honestly. It's trying to get my head around, even trying to post a video has been a big challenge for me. So he wrote me a step-by-step guide. Step 1, do this. Step 2, do that. Then you post it to your story. So yeah, that's been a steep learning curve for me in the last few days.
Small steps. That's all it is. It's small steps, isn't it? And yeah, the more you do, the more you get confidence, the more you get used to it. And
it's really nerve-wracking. Really nerve-wracking. I look at all these influencers and I take my hat off to them, but it's just not something that's, I suppose I'm not quiet. I'm not a quiet person, but I just, I don't like having my face in front of the camera. I just like to go about my business quietly.
Yeah, that's absolutely, 100%, 100%.
Mhm.
Brilliant. So I'm trying to think. I'll just quickly go to my questions. What I've got next? 2 minutes. I'll say I can edit this, but the joys of pre-recording, you can just edit bits out. Sorry, 2 seconds. Cool. So I'm just trying to think.
I'll tell you some more maybe stories of I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I'm just trying to think, really. I don't want it to be a really negative podcast where I'm like really dissing it, not encouraging people, because I really believe that, we need the youngsters coming through. We need all the entrepreneurs. We need them, but I just wish it was more attractive for people to be able to start their own businesses,
Well, that's maybe a good question. So obviously at the minute, I think in any business that you're in, and I'm in all sorts of industries myself, every business owner I seem to speak to at the minute is finding it difficult to navigate the choppy waters that we're in at the minute due to all sorts of factors that are outside of our control. There's a lot going on within the world at the minute. It's upside down and all over the place. In your opinion, what do you think the government are getting wrong at the minute in terms of supporting those independent businesses that are really trying to make a difference within the community? Because I do feel myself at the minute, there is a lack of support from the government there, and it only seems to be getting made harder for the small independents. What's your opinion on that? Where do you think the government could be helping out more?
Yeah, no, I agree. I totally agree. There is, funding is so difficult for them, for people starting out. It's really hard to get funding. There is funding out there, but the sort of paperwork you've got to complete, you've got to meet a criteria. And I get why they're doing it. And so there's got to be a better way. I think also for me, that people sort of making up the rules, as it were. They're not really in touch with what's going on, with the people on the ground. And working with creative people, they are so incredibly talented. when I look at what they're doing, it's just so difficult for them to get the funding and to get what they need to get going. And a lot of these, if you're making a film production, you've got film tax credits that you can apply for and things like that. But they need to get an accountant on board to help them with that, and that's fine. But the actual sort of build up to getting to the point where they can apply, there's a lot of work to do, a lot of paperwork, and they can't be expected to fund it up front, unless they get investors. Getting investors, that's difficult. So, it's just so many sort of challenges before you even get to the point where, you can get going. The businesses that probably are okay, again, I would say even people selling a product, you've got to have the money to then be able to buy the product to then get going. So really the only people that can get going without a sort of a bit of a chunk in the bank account are people that are just selling their time, just selling a service as such. I guess I'm one of those. I've been fortunate to be able to get going. I haven't had any funding. I haven't had any investments. I've not had anything. But, most people do need to get access to something because they haven't got money just sitting in the bank. So, I think that for me would be making this money or funding more accessible for people wanting to start out. Yeah. And then giving them support to help them keep going and ride those early days.
Definitely. There does seem to be a lack, even going sort of back 5-10 years, there seemed to be a lot more in the way of support or encouragement for young business owners to kind of really set up, and whether that be funding, government grants, even the banks promoting supporting entrepreneurs and business bank accounts and stuff. And there certainly seems to be a huge drop off, obviously for obvious reasons within what's going on within the world and interest rates, etc., and instability. However, I do fear that potentially, if we're not careful and we're dampening the ambition of the young entrepreneurs, where the country's going to be another 5-10 years from now. Because if we're not encouraging those creative entrepreneurial type people to go out there and chase those dreams or support them, because like you say, you can't start with nothing. You've got to have something. You've got to have some sort of support there. Yeah. Do you think we're ever going to get to a tricky position as a country as to where we are with, entrepreneurial flair?
Totally. I mean, I've seen the shift happening, because I've probably seen maybe 10 clients revert from, or they've gone back to the PAYE world because they just said it's too difficult. The fluctuating income, the film industry is getting so hard. The price, their hourly rates or day rates are being driven down. The shift has started for sure. So they've secured jobs in maybe bigger agencies, so they get the regular income. But that then starts stunting the entrepreneurs coming through. So there's definitely a shift, and it's a real shame. It is a real shame because they're very talented. It's just got to be a better way for them, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. No, I completely agree. And with that, with creative in numbers, obviously, I mean, it's kind of in the name, and you'll always be focused within that creative space. Have you ever tried to branch out to other industries? Have you ever looked at other industries, or have you kind of just thought, this is my niche, I enjoy it, I'm good at it, that's what I'm going to stick at?
That's absolutely what I've done. Just, I have had other clients in different industries along the way. I've inherited a couple, maybe because it was a friend of a friend or something. It just wasn't for me in terms of all for creative in numbers. I like working in the creative industries. It's definitely something I enjoy. So that's what I'm sticking with, or that's what me and the team will stick with. There's such a broad spectrum of what's classified as creatives. It's not just production illustrators, artists. We've got all of them. I've got one client who's actually a builder. Was a friend of mine, and I took him on, and I said, well, we could say you're creating because they build new houses. So I was like, that's fine. You're building new houses. That's creative. So come on board. But it's not something I would want to, I think another accountancy practice will look solely after builders and developers and things like that. So, but that's not the area I choose to be in. I choose to be in the creative field for sure.
Yeah, brilliant. And so where would you like, as a bit of a personal goal, as a business owner, where would you like to be in 3 to 5 years? Have you thought in terms of just your own work-life balance? You know, everyone gets into business to eventually have some work-life balance. And what would be the ideal picture for you in terms of where the business would be at? And have you ever thought about that, or are you kind of blinders on?
No, thought about it. I'm actually just for the first time I'm taking a month off in from the 3rd of July, actually. So at the end of this week, and I've said I'm doing it as a bit of an experiment, as well as where is the business at the moment? Because so I'm going to have the month off, and I'm going to be around, of course, but I'm going to see how well the team can do without me actually physically being in the business. So they're fully briefed. We know what's going on. They know what's happening. So this for me is a sort of, and also is to see whether I can have a break without having to go onto my laptop. I've not ever been out. Whenever I've been out of this country in the last 23 years, I've always taken my laptop and I've always opened it and had to deal with emails. And that is every single day of my holiday. So for me, I will take my laptop. I'm going to Spain for a couple of weeks. I will take my laptop. I'm going to attempt not to open it unless it's absolutely necessary. So this is what's happening soon. Once we get through that, then it gives me a much clearer picture about what the next 3 to 5 years are going to look like for me. I still want to be involved in business. I don't want to come out of it yet. If you'd asked me that 5 years ago, I was ready to go, but I'm not now. Things have changed for me. I'm very much wanting to be involved with the clients as well. So I do all the meetings, speak to them regularly. Every day I have Zoom meetings with different clients. So that for me would be my main role. And I don't want to lose that bit of my role. And I guess probably the aim is to review in 4 years' time. Yeah, when I'm 60, that's the sort of next benchmark. So, yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah. It's like you say, you've got to have personal ambition and know where you're going as well. I think as business owners, we can get so caught up in the day-to-day trench life, you know, really trying to fight it out, that years pass by. I'm sure you probably think 23 years probably has gone in the blink of an eye, and you can't believe, it's been that long. And when it's so easily done, weeks roll into months, roll into years, and you're so focused on just building the business that you don't actually take a step back and think, hang on, this is also years of my life that are going with the business. And as much as we live and breathe our businesses, we've got to also at some point enjoy life at the same time. And I think that's the difficult balance.
Yeah, I think for me, I really struggled with the sort of imposter syndrome as well. So I just felt I had to be working in it, sort of proving myself, you know, and it's only probably, again, the last few years where I've actually had a real mind shift and thought, hang on a minute, I must be doing something right, because, you know, the business is growing. We're gaining clients every week. They're staying, not moving on. You know, we get the odd one moving on, but fundamentally they're all staying, which is great. So that's when I realized it was a bit of a light bulb moment. It's like, actually, yeah, they're here. They're staying, they're with me, they like the team. So yeah, well, getting over that was a massive hurdle. And I just felt I had to be here working. But I realise now I don't need to be in it all the time. Just
definitely.
So I can get the life balance, a bit of a work-life balance back.
Takes time. Like anything, it takes time. It doesn't feel right at first, and it has to be a slow transition, because you don't want to feel like you're losing control. I think that's quite natural.
It is the control thing. It's, again, like you said, mentally, you've got to be able to let go. And a couple of years said, a friend of mine who's got her own business, she said to me, that was the biggest transition for her as well. Realizing that she'd got a team and she had to step away. She said, Vicki, it's exactly what you've got to do that at some point. And so that's the transition I made and gradually making over the last. And when I say step away, I don't mean step from the clients or anything away. It's step away from the day-to-day, preparing the accounts, doing the bookkeeping, whatever I was doing. You've got to step away from that element. So yeah, that's a massive mind shift for anybody who's built their business, I believe. It's probably the hardest thing to do, because it's your baby, you built this up from nothing. I'm sure you've got the same, have you?
Absolutely, yeah, of course, definitely. It's you never really switch off, do you? From the second you wake up, and even sometimes when you're asleep, it is the first thing on my mind, and it's the last thing I think of before going to bed, and you can't help it. Even if I try different, techniques of trying to wind down an hour before. I try and put my phone on do not disturb and, read a book or something to take my mind off things before I go to bed. And, I think still, I find my mind, even as soon as I put the book down, I'm thinking, right, tomorrow,
Absolutely. Yeah. What tomorrow? And then you might, you have your emails on your phone. You might, you have obviously can get access to emails on phone just because you have to, because no, the team aren't there. So just in case, but you look at it and then you might get something in and oh gosh, got to go and deal with that, or a client that needs something quickly, and it can make or break a weekend as well. You're having some time. I think that's probably one of my biggest regrets is, it was so all time consuming. I feel like I've missed time with my family, my children, because I was so invested in business. They're grown up now. I've talked to them about it and they're like, absolutely not, Mum. You did what you needed to do. And they kind of got used to it. But for me, I do have this sort of level of guilt, I suppose, where I should have been more focused on them at weekends or whatever, rather than maybe a client that needed something, and that could have waited. So yeah,
I see where you're coming from, but certainly from the other side, from someone whose parents worked a lot as well. My mum worked in London. She used to go down on Monday and come back on a Friday. So this was when we was only 12, 13, and we kind of fended for ourselves a bit. And Dad worked a lot of shifts, but I think you've set a really good precedent and role model for your kids in terms of, I think we've all me and my brothers have all grown up very hardworking, and I think that's from the example our parents set, is that if you want to achieve good things and have nice things in this world, that doesn't come easy. You've got to put the hard work in. So I've no doubt that your kids will look up to you thinking you've set an example of what hard work looks like.
Well, they're grown up and they do both have jobs and they do work hard. Yeah. My daughter's a primary school teacher, incredibly difficult job.
Absolutely.
Wouldn't want to do that. And my son is, he was trained. That's interesting, but he's got a full-time job. He's 22. He's worked since, always had some kind of job since he was 16. So again, works hard. But that's interesting in itself. Just a little story about Henry, because he did his 3 years he was training to be an electrician. Did his 3 years through college, got to that point, and then when you do your last 2 years, so it's a 5-year training, you have to go and get an apprenticeship. And that's where he came to a grinding halt, because he didn't get taken on as apprentice at 16. He was now 19. He'd done his 3 years at college. They either want to take them on at 16, where it's sort of virtually no pay at all, and then trying to find a job where he's got these 3 years just to then get his practical. All the electricians said, we're too busy. So you've got this massive problem here as well. I'm sort of going off on a tangent, but he couldn't find an apprenticeship to finish his 2 years and do the practical side of it. Because, as I say, all the electricians said, we could take you on, but we're so snowed under, we just don't have time to train you. And he must have applied for 10, 15 jobs, and they all pretty much the same stock response. So we're going to have this massive skills gap. It's happening because all the electricians, their age is 50s or whatever, have now got this massive gap because they just don't have time to train the youngsters. So again, big problem. Bring back the apprenticeships, but make it better, make it bigger, for more offerings for all the youngsters, for sure.
100%. And again, it's just lack of government initiative is to encouraging these trades people to take on apprentices, no matter what age they're at. There should be support from the government in terms of getting these people skilled and getting them into work. So one thing I was that I do like to end on, and feel free to have a little think on this. If there's one piece of advice you could give to a young entrepreneur going into business now in 2025, what do you think that advice would be? And why? Have a little think. No,
my advice would be the same probably now or even 10 years ago is, it's hard, but look what you can achieve, look at the end goal, look at what you're trying to achieve. It's a difficult journey, but, you need to have some resilience. You need to be, persevere. You need to get as much support from family as well, who can help you, guide you through sort of certain elements. But the biggest advice is don't give up. don't give up, just keep going, but make sure, I think as well, is to get the structure right at the beginning. Don't just go in blindly, get some financial, just a little bit of business information. What structure should I be? Limited company, sole trader, whatever. So that for me is get that right from the beginning. It is a difficult journey, but just don't give up. Don't give up. Look at your vision, look at the end goal, because you can get there. You can definitely get there. We just need more people like that to keep going. I think that's it really, isn't it? Because I think that's probably.
Yeah, I think that summarizes it perfectly. You've got to have tenacity, haven't you?
Sorry?
You've got to have tenacity and growth.
Definitely tenacity. Yeah, you've got to be focused. It's going to be hard work, but I think the biggest thing is to not give up. Not give up, because the rewards are out there. It's not an easy road, but it's a rewarding road once you've built something and you've got your business running, you've got clients, you've got people working with you, you've got, that's the reward at the end of it. And that's definitely worth fighting for, I would say.
Good. Brilliant. So if people want to find you, Vicki, what kind of platform, social media, what's your website?
Well, Creative in Numbers, just put me into the Google search or whatever and I'll pop up somewhere, probably hopefully near the top if my SEO's been working. If you're looking for accountants for creatives and those kind of keywords, I should be there somewhere up the top, hopefully. Again, same name for my Instagram, Creative in Numbers, so I'll be on there. Don't laugh at my videos, but I'm learning slowly. They're all going to be of me. Brilliant. So I'm hopefully not too difficult to find. Just by putting my name into the search engine, I should pop up there.
Creative in Numbers, brilliant. Well, thank you very much, Vicki. Really appreciate your time today. It's been brilliant speaking to you. Wishing you the best of luck with obviously the next few years of business and growing the team, and hopefully we'll stay in contact.
Yes.
And thank you very much again.
And thank you for having me. It's been lovely. It's been great. We enjoyed it.
Good. Thanks, Vicki.
Okay.